cold outside, but the fire keeps us warm. We can spend the night underneath the mistletoe, and I've gotten you a present that I put under the tree.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary Rose if you're new here, and today I am doing pecan pies. So I have done this before a couple weeks ago, and I feel like I haven't made the crust exactly right. I didn't incorporate the butter just enough, so I'm going to try my hand at this again, and I want to perfect it so I can continue to make it and share it with my friends. I found this recipe by Oh Yum with Anna Olson, and at first I was very intimidated by it because I thought it was very high-end. It's made by a professional. And so after the first time I made it, I said to myself, I said, you know what, even though I didn't make it as perfect as she did, it wasn't that difficult, and I'm sure if I tried to make it again, I can make it just perfect. I'm gonna start off with 2 1/4 cups of cake flour. And as she mentioned on her video, using cake flour will make the pies light and crispy and will hold the filling better. So I already have 1 tablespoon of sugar in there. We need a total of 2. So I'm gonna add 1 more. And we're gonna add 3 1/4 teaspoons of salt. I don't wanna make a mess, so I put my salt in the bowl first, and I'm gonna measure. So that's a half, and I need 1/4 more. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit less because the butter that we're about to use, it requires unsalted butter, and one of the sticks that I have is salted. I didn't have enough, so it'll be like a balance of both. Okay, so we wanna sift this before continuing making this pie crust. Next, take a cup of unsalted butter, and again, I didn't have the full 1 cup of unsalted butter, so half of it is salted, and then you put it in the freezer for about a minute or so. You want it very, very cold before you add this to the flour, and it will make the crust even flakier. Last time I made this, I felt like my dough was more crispy than flaky, and it must have been the butter not incorporating well into the flour. Trying to make this just right, and so you want small, very small pieces incorporated in the flour. It should be the size of, I would say, maybe 1/3 of the size. We're going to use our stand mixer to mix the butter into the flour, and we want to go low speed and slowly add the pieces of butter. I feel like my stand mixer struggles a little bit with the bigger pieces of butter. I'm going to increase the speed just a little. After a minute, some of the butter did break into smaller pieces, but I feel like the chunks are still too big. Like this would be too big. I want it like half the size. So I'm gonna go ahead and beat it for another minute. Okay, so that was less than a minute. That was actually more like 15 seconds. And the butter did break down a little more. There are some big pieces, but I think I'm just gonna break this by hand. But this is the piece that I want, just like this. I'm just gonna feel throughout my dough and see if I have any big chunks, which I think that may have been the, oh, here's another one. So I'm just gonna break this. All right, I think that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and mix the rest of the ingredients. To the dough, we're gonna add 6 tablespoons of ice cold water and a tablespoon of lemon juice, and that's supposed to make this crust very, very flaky. So I'm gonna let this mix probably 30 seconds or less, and then we're gonna knead this by hand. The dough hasn't really incorporated together, hasn't clumped together, so by hand I'm just gonna clump the dough. I'm not gonna do it too much because I don't want the butter to melt. I'm gonna take this down and just... Sorry guys, I didn't know my camera was off, but to tell you what I just did, I cut the dough in half and I'm rolling it into logs. Now, she said in her video that you want to roll the flour with regular flour or bread flour and not cake flour. So the first one is pretty much done, and I'm gonna wrap this up. So I'm gonna plastic wrap this, and I'm gonna put it into the freezer and let it rest. Now you can see how I roll this up. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of regular flour onto my surface, and I'm just gonna knead this a little bit. It doesn't need a lot because we mixed the dough pretty well in the stand mixer. So I'm just gonna shape it into a log and roll it. Okay, this dough does look better than the last time we made it. It doesn't have like the huge chunks of flour, I'm sorry, of butter. But it looks a little bit smaller to me. We're supposed to cut this in 6 pieces, so we'll see. Okay, that looks good enough. Let me get my plastic wrap. Okay, now time to put it in the freezer. I set my ingredients for the filling aside while the logs were chilling, so that took about 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna set this and kind of knead it a little bit, just slightly. It's still in a log form, and then I'm going to cut it in 6 pieces. Now I noticed that one of my pieces are a little bit bigger than the other, so I'm just gonna make do. I'm gonna probably put another piece together. I'm just marking these, and I'm not doing a very good job, but it'll come out just the same. I'm gonna take this little piece and put it with the other one. And you want these kind of disc shaped so it'll roll out easier. And I cut it over here. This is too big. Okay, this was a little small, so I'm gonna put this together. Okay, now we're just gonna roll it out flat. I'm gonna sprinkle the dough. I'm gonna try to do this fast. And then also the muffin tins. She says it doesn't require any oil, just the flour. So we want to make this big enough because we're going to use a very large round cookie cutter and then cut it so it's perfectly round for the crust. This part keeps breaking. I'm just pinching it together. Now I'm going to cut this so it's perfectly round, like that. And then it goes into, just move that aside. It goes into the muffin tin like this. This dough actually looks a little bit better than last time. And you're just gonna pinch the sides together. Okay. Last time I really pushed the dough into the pan and it stuck. So I'm not gonna push it, I'm just gently fitting it in. So I'm gonna do the same thing for all of them and I'll get back to you. Now we're going to melt a half a cup of dark brown sugar and half a cup of butter. I have it in the pot and we're just gonna melt and mix everything together. And then on the side here, I have a few more ingredients for the filling. I have 2 eggs, half a cup of pure maple syrup, a teaspoon of pure vanilla, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. And we're gonna mix everything together. I'm going to melt the butter and the sugar together. That shouldn't take too long. And while that's going, I'm gonna put these ingredients together. So 2 eggs, half a cup of pure maple syrup. Gonna dump it in here. A tablespoon of lemon juice. We're gonna take a teaspoon of pure vanilla. I'm just gonna pour it right in. And a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna mix that in. This is smelling pretty good already. Just gonna break up that butter. Anything with butter, I feel like elevates a dish. When I made my omelet yesterday, I could have added butter instead of oil, and that could have added some flavor to the dish. This is almost done. I'm just going to shut off the heat. The sugar and the butter is perfectly mixed, and then we're going to continue our filling. We're going to beat the eggs. Try not to make a mess. I think this is a little bit too small of a bowl. So this is the fun part. We're going to take the syrup and we're going to mix it with the eggs. Now, she said we're going to whisk it together so it shouldn't scramble. And it's not very hot anymore. It's actually cooled down just slightly. So, okay. I think that's good though. Now I have a sink full of dirty dishes. So now it's nicely incorporated, if you can see that. And I'm going to put it into my measuring cup, a glass measuring cup that has a spout so it's easier to pour into the cups. It's like caramel. It smells really good. Almost forgot the star ingredient, but you want to take some pecans and lightly toast it on a frying pan. I have the lightly toasted pecans and we're going to pour a few of them on the bottom of each pie. I'm going to give that a little bit more. I just grabbed a large handful and toasted it. I didn't measure, so I'm just going to put a little bit in each, and then I'm going to spread out to the ones that need it. Now we're going to pour our syrup into these little pecan pies, and we're going to do about, I would say, 3/4 of the way. In her recipe, oops, I think that may be a little bit too much. Her dough actually looked a little bit thinner than mine. So let's see how this turns out. So I'm gonna pour, actually I'm gonna do half. I think 3/4 might be too much. Let me pour just a little bit more in here. I'm gonna share this with this one. Now we're going to put this in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes and then lower it to 375 and then cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes. This is how the mini pecan looks like when it's all done straight out of the oven. Now it's recommended you wait for it to chill and then take it out, but I'm in a rush and I really want to taste these pies, so I'm going to take out one now and taste it. Okay, I'm ready to taste this mini pecan pies that I cooked for the second time, and it absolutely looks perfect. So I'm glad I gave it a second shot, and I think this is it. I think I can do it some more and share it with friends. So let's give it a taste. That pie crust is so flaky and crispy. It does not taste like homemade. It tastes professional baked. You guys gotta give this a try. Thank you for coming along with me and baking these mini pecan pies. They are so delicious and so very much worth it. And if you guys like this content, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And come along with me for the rest of the month of December, because we are doing Vlogcember. This is Vlogcember day 11, I want to say. And so this is it. This is the mini pecan pies, and I'm going to share this with my friends tonight, and I'll share it with you guys. And if you like this content, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you tomorrow on Vlogcember day 11. Bye everyone.